today's video, I'm going to be showing you a witch who is looking into her cauldron, and the cauldron is glowing with whatever kind of mix she decided to make in there, and the glow is brushing up on her face. She's got like this underlit glow, kind of an eerie look that is from the cauldron goo. I love the challenge in this one from figuring out where to place that glow acrylic so that it does look like she is being lit from beneath in the dark. Such a cool idea, such a fun way to make your brain really think about it. I hope you guys like this one as much as I do, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my nail form. If you have any questions on applying a nail form, especially a longer one, I have a full video dedicated to such information, and I can put a link to that in the description box below. I'm going to fit the form onto my practice finger. I forgot to tape around the part of my finger so that the form would stick, so I had to do that quick. I'm going to open the sides of my form, make sure it fits really nice, try to make sure it's really straight too, and now I'm going to blend out the natural nail onto my nail form with clear acrylic. I'm going to take the clear acrylic and I'm going to make a platform for my extension all the way down the entire form. If you wanted your form even longer, that is definitely where that other video would help you, because I show how to extend a nail form longer than what it is just from the store. I'm going to extend this all the way down to the point that I can on this nail form without making the nail form any longer. Then, using mixed beads of acrylic, I'm going to first dip into a clear glow in the dark and then into gray, black, and or white. I'm going to just take a mix of these and I'm going to swirl this background of this nail. The nail itself is so gorgeous. It makes me want to do a glowy marble on myself, which is something I feel like I'm going to have to do pretty soon because I absolutely just adored the background of this nail with the glow and the marble, because it looks marbled in the dark with the glow in the dark as part of your main color. So just make sure you grab some glow in the dark with each bead as you work down the nail. After you are happy with your blend, your little marbly ombre, I wanted kind of like smoky clouds was my idea. I am then going to take and encapsulate this nail going all the way down with clear acrylic. As you probably know, if you have sculpted extremely long nails before, it is a multi-bead process. Just keep adding acrylic until you can walk it all the way down to the tip of that nail. After you have sculpted it all the way, you're happy with your apex, shape, all that's great. Let that cure, remove your nail form, and then file it into shape. Again, if you are familiar with super duper long nails, you probably know an e-file only gets you so far. So after you have taken your e-file and removed everything that's, the bigger bulky areas and the most problematic spots, I'm going to switch over to a hand file and I'm going to file the rest of this. I am using a 100 grit file because I want to remove certain areas of product relatively quickly. If you didn't want to remove product very quickly, don't use 100 grit file. 180 is usually my sweet spot. Now I'm going to grab a not exactly skin tone color, kind of more bruised color. It's a little bit more purplish than what normal flesh tone would be, and I'm going to begin sculpting my witch. The reason for that slightly bruised color is because I wanted her face to look shaded like it's in the dark. So that slightly more purplish or gray tone is going to make it look like her face is in partial shade, which will help lend itself to the entire idea of being lit up by the glow of the cauldron. So I'm going to use that color that just happens to look just kind of like shaded skin or bruised skin, or maybe not as alive skin. I have the basic shape of her face, the outline, and then I'm going to add more acrylic to her cheekbones and to her nose to begin with. And then after I have that, I'm going to add more acrylic to her chin. I am going to take this little tiny bit by little tiny bit, slowly adding more height to various areas of her face. I do just want to say that nose sculpted in there so beautifully on the first bead. I was actually, as soon as I sculpted it, I thought to myself, wow, if only it was always that easy. So don't let the video fool you. That was like special circumstance there. I don't know what happened, but the acrylic goddesses were in my favor for sculpting this witch. I'm going to go through and finish going and doing her forehead, adding more, leaving kind of an open hole around where her eyes would be. After that, I'm going to take a bead of acrylic, set that right into the aforementioned open hole, kind of blend it out, and then take the very tip of my brush and carve out just a slit for her eye. I'm not going to give her what looks like open eyes. The angle that I envision her looking is down into the cauldron. So because of that, you really won't see like her eyeball. Even if her eyes are open, you just really won't see it. So I'm not going to just like sculpt in a whole eye. I'm just going to use the tip of my brush to create that little slit for where her upper eyelid would separate from the lower eyelid. I'm going to add just the slightest hint of lips. I'll do more with her lips later on with color. Now I'm going to do a couple strands of hair. This was a little premature. I got excited. I'm going to take gray and black and I'm going to sculpt them into long strips. This is a two-tone bead, just like I did with the background. There's the first long strip and here's a second one. Like I said, I was excited to do the hair, so I kind of missed the step of giving her a neck and a shirt. But I'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to lay down the first strand of hair on one side of her head, twist it, and then press it down. Going to repeat the process on the other side. Put down the piece of hair, make sure you hold it at the top of her head, and then twist it and set it down. Now that I did those two, I thought to myself, I kind of missed some steps here. Let me just backtrack it a little bit. I'm going to sculpt her neck with the same color that I used for her face, and then with a dark blue, I will be sculpting the top part of her dress. I'm going to take the neck color down her chest a little ways. I just want to make sure that it's down far enough that I won't have an open gap between her chest and her dress. So take it a little farther down than where you want her chest to be exposed so that you have space to overlap. I'm going to bulk up her chest a little bit. I don't want her to be like ridiculously voluptuous, but I do want to make sure that she does look like a woman. And then I'm going to grab my darker shade of blue, and it's got a nice sparkle to it as well. I'm going to be adding her outfit on top. I kind of was trying to avoid the color black in this witch design with the exception of the background and her hair. I wanted to keep everything a little bit more on the rich jewel tones, darker blues, purples, that kind of a thing, because I felt it would make her look a little less menacing and also make all of the details a bit more easy to see. If her hat was black, the background was black, her hair is black, her dress is black, her cauldron's black, the whole design would just be a little bit like a black hole. You wouldn't get to see the details. So instead, by using dark colors like a plum purple, and in the case of this dark sparkly blue, it'll make it so that everything is a little bit more easy to see and that you can actually tell what is what when you're looking at it. I'm going to use the purple color that I have out for this design to add a little bit of a highlight on her dress, and I will use a touch of black to add some shading on the dress. I'm now going to make a multitude of those strands of hair, and I'm going to twist and press them. I'm going to go back and forth for the most part, working from the right to the left, just adding those twists of curls. And I don't have like a certain number that I plan to make. I'm just going to keep making them until I look at it and I'm like, you know what? She's got lots of hair. That's kind of the way that this is going to go. So just keep making them and pressing them down. The right moment to pick up something like this when you want it to still be moldable is right when it'll come off the nail form backing. When the surface of the acrylic has turned matte and you can easily slide your brush underneath, that's the moment to do it. I found that making 2 at a time was a good tempo for me to be able to sculpt them, pick them up, place them down before they got too hard without just sitting there waiting for them either. Kind of gave me the right amount of time to work and just keep it going. You might find, depending on your acrylic, maybe you'll make 3 at a time. Maybe you can just do 1 at a time. If your house is warmer in the winter, if you're like right next to a heater or something, your acrylic is going to cure quicker, and then maybe you won't be able to make as many on each time. I'm going to add at least 1 strand that's kind of going over her forehead a little bit, like she has a wispy bit that's not pushed back as far. And then after I have them about to this stage, not taking them too far above her forehead either, I'm going to say the hair is done. With a shimmery shade of purple, I'm going to be giving her some purple makeup on her eyelids, depending on the feeling you want your witch to have, whether she be more glamorous or more wicked. This will definitely affect the way that you want to adorn her face. I wanted her to be kind of on the glamorous side of things, evidently, with the purple. And so I'm going to make sure that she stays a little bit more that glamorous way, not so much as like she's gorgeous. I do have a very pretty witch design that I did last year that's kind of similar to this, but really lays into the fact that I wanted that witch a year ago to be very beautiful. So I can put a link to that video in the description box as well. It might just give you some ideas of other ways of sculpting it and designing a witch if you are thinking of making a similar design. Just give you some more ideas. I'm going to use black to sculpt in her eyebrows and her lash line. The reason I like to sculpt the eyebrows and the lash line, even though you could paint them, is I find that with acrylic paint, you make the line, and if the line goes crooked, that's it. But with acrylic, you can press it back and forth, side to side, and I find it's actually way more forgiving. Same thing with her lips. I'm going to sculpt her lips with my darker shade of purple. same system. I just find it's easier to do these things because I do personally think it's a little bit more forgiving. Going back to the dark sparkly blue that I used on her dress, I'm going to be sculpting her hat. You can make her hat go straight up and pointy or make it look a little bit more kind of slouchy and worn, which is the route I took. Just don't overthink it. Whenever you're making something kind of whimsical and goofy like this, try to just go with the flow. Let the acrylic kind of dictate some of the things, especially like in the case of the hat. Just let it have some organic movement. I'm going to highlight it with both my lighter and my darker shade of purples. The lighter shade of purple has a nice shimmery quality that really almost makes these things look like they're glowing without being glow in the dark. And then the last thing for the hat is that you're going to have to sculpt the brim. Do that on a nail form backing, make just like a crescent shape, and then let that cure until it's about the same texture as your hair was, if not maybe just a slight touch more stiff. And then you're going to pick it up and set it down on her head. It's a little tricky to get it to sit where you want it to and to kind of stretch around her head, so be patient with yourself. If the first brim you make does not work, go ahead and make a second one. Same thing, let your acrylic kind of make some decisions. So her brim went over her face a little bit, which I was just fine with, and it looked a little funky on the sides. That's probably going to happen, so go ahead and smooth everything out and fix it up with more of your dark blue acrylic. If there's any wrinkles, just fill them in. Just cover that up. It's all good. Make sure that the brim of that hat is really secure to the nail, though. You don't want it to just be smoothed out and loose where it'll get bumped off. You want it to be actually attached all the way across the hat and onto the sides. Add a little bit more of those same purples for highlighting it, just to keep the continuity across the entire hat. I'm going to extend her dress just a little farther down the nail so that it doesn't have a weird gappy spot between the cauldron and the dress. And then after I have that, I'm going to begin sculpting my cauldron brim on a nail form backing with the darker shade of purple. That shade wasn't used too much throughout the rest of the design, so in this moment where it's just this color, it'll really kind of show up as a separate shade altogether. I'm going to leave a really thin little opening at the top of that cauldron, and then I'm going to sculpt the bowl of the cauldron underneath it, trying to match it up so it's about the right width compared to what the top of the cauldron is, but don't actually attach them together. Leave a gap between them so that they're two separate pieces. After you have all of that sculpted, you have your two pieces, leave them to the side so that they get nice and cured and crispy. And then I'm going to take the rim of the cauldron and I'm going to attach it to the nail right about where the point where you want the dress of your witch to stop. Leave a space between the top of the cauldron and say her chest and her face, because there will be the little flames that come up. Make sure you attach that piece nicely with some clear acrylic. Try not to overly fill in that little opening that you have in the top, because that's going to help place the flames later on. It doesn't have to go all the way through, but you just want to have like a little bit of an indent so that there's some place for the flames to tuck into. Attach the bowl of the cauldron, and then with quite a bit of that purple color, you're going to fill out the shape of the cauldron. This does take a little bit more acrylic than I was hoping that it would, just as far as like a how much product am I using up here stance, but it does take not much time, so there's a benefit. Fill it in underneath, lining it up with the edges of the nail, and then I'm going to round off the front of it. After I have the bowl of the cauldron rounded off, I'm also going to add a little bit more shape to the rim. Just kind of fill it out, make it look a little less, potato chipish, a little bit more like a thicker rope, nice and rounded off. After I have it gone all the way around, I'm going to take some black and do some shading and some of that lighter purple and do some highlighting on my cauldron. After it is all done at this point, go back to your nail form backing, and I'm going to take a two-tone bead of two colors of glow-in-the-dark acrylic. The clear one that I've been using in the background, and then a very, very bright, really pretty green one. I'm going to use those two colors to make my two-tone flames. I'm going to make 3 that curve in one direction and 2 that curve in the other direction. It doesn't matter which one's 3 and which one's 2, just as you're sculpting them, be a little bit aware of which, if your flame curves to the right first or if it curves to the left first, and then make little squiggles going up. Just as long as they're not all the same is pretty much the situation. You want them to be a little bit varied. After you have all of your little flamey pieces sculpted, and they are, like I've said with the other things, crispy, go ahead and remove them from the nail form backing. dip their flat ends in some nail glue, and then glue them into the cauldron. Whichever shape has 3, start by gluing one in the middle and then one all the way to the left and one all the way to the right. Then the other shape that has 2 of that direction, go ahead and glue those in between the other ones, kind of pulling them forward so that they stick a little bit, out farther than the other ones. That's going to help separate them so they don't all just look like one big mess. I'm going to take the green shade of acrylic, that glow-in-the-dark color, and I'm going to add a little bit more around the base of each flame, fill in that little groove that was left in the cauldron. Then taking some clear acrylic, the clear glow, add a little bit to the back of each flame if it does seem like they are too delicate to be sustain the life of this nail. With your glow-in-the-dark acrylic, envision where this witch would glow if she was looking over a pot of boiling, glowy cauldron goop. Then you're going to apply your glow-in-the-dark acrylic in those areas that are going to get lit up by the glowing goop. This is tricky. Look at some photos. There's lots of pictures on the internet of a witch with a cauldron. Take a flashlight into the bathroom and shine it on your face and see which areas get hit by light. There's different options to do this, or you can just look at it and you can visualize it. Up to you, whichever way seems like it's the best option. Add some to her hair, face, chest. Then I'm going to take some acrylic paint, not very much because most of her detailing was done with the acrylic, but I am going to add a couple little outlines, highlights, shadows, whatever I need to with my acrylic paint. With black, I'm going to add some outlines around her hat, kind of separate the hat from the background a little bit. I'm going to add some more details to her face. I did some shading, so those areas that were not lit up by the cauldron goop might need to have a bit more of a shadow on them. You can do that with a wash of black acrylic paint. Diluting acrylic paint is easy. You just have to add some water, mix it around. It'll give you lots of options for diluting it. Add some outlines on the cauldron if you want. I'm going to outline one side of each of the flames just to help keep them separated so that they don't end up just look like one big green blob. And now I'm going to add some gel sealer over the background of my nail. Just any of those places where it is the marble that are showing, I'm also going to apply gel sealer over the flames so that they're nice and glowy. After that's cured, I'm going to take some 3D glaze, which will give a satin finish, apply that over the cauldron and the hat and her hair, and then some matte top coat and apply that over her face and chest. And that is it. That is how I created this gorgeous glowy witch. I love how it looks just so glamorous in the daylight, but then once you take her into the night, into the dark, she does have definitely a more sinister look with the way that she glows, and it just, I don't know, it's a fun little 2-option design. I hope you like it as much as I do. Even just the background color is so much fun. If you do decide to make a recreation, I would love to see it. I'm always so flattered when people send them to me, and I will see you all next time. Bye.